This is my mom's hand. And I've been never thinking about it. I can never hear the long beats. That's how it's fun. Okay, so I was like, make sure you call them, make sure we're together. And I was like, I'll reach out to you. It's a thing. She was. But I know that yeah, exactly. Gave me because it has to be so she's kind of you know, it kind of stuff. She mentioned how they happens. It's like and so she even mentioned I have the bear, perfect. And then so that's what it's done. Like reading so this whether it's sounds like Valley she mentioned, maybe work with the hiring.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in my neighborhood. To be mine, or to be mine, but admittedly, my neighbor. Here we are. Once again, another year has gone by. So happy to see you guys come out. I want to say hello to people out there in the video land, Lord joining us. And we'll be expedition. Got a whole lot of stuff to cover. So we'll get right ahead. And right now, if you will, let me introduce you via Zoom, the Mayor of Carolyn Martin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so grateful and thankful that you all care enough about Carbondale to take your morning to join us for the Neighborhood Alliance annual program. I'm just thankful that we have organizations in Carbondale who care not only about the citizens of Carbondale, but who want to reach a broad range of citizens. Thank you again so much for inviting me. I hope this is an event where we will learn a little bit about what some of the organizations do, and hopefully we will find some more volunteers for each organization. Thank you.
We have a few acknowledgements I'm just going to take here briefly. I'm looking around and see several members of the city council that are present. And if you will, I just stand up and kind of wave and let everybody know who you are. Nancy Maxwell. And now I'm looking around. Okay. She's our new PR person, director of public relations in the city of Carbondale. I thought I kind of give her a call out. Okay, here we go. Community reports. And we have with us keeping time today the ladies with the League of Women Voters. And they'll be keeping time for us. And if you want to come on up and explain how.
Well, okay, this is just a gentle reminder for our speakers that the community will be talking for about 90 seconds. And so 30 seconds from when you should start winding up. Jack Cattle, Becker there, and then stop. We would like to close down and purpose for keep things rolling today. Want to hear everything?
Okay. And in case, this is your first time here, I've got my book here, so okay. Our first report will be from the Black Chamber of Commerce. That'll be Chrissy Bates. I'm sorry, Chastity Bates. I'm used to seeing like a C Bates. There you go.
Hi, everybody. I am Chastity Bates, and I'm the current president of the Black Chamber of Commerce of Southern Illinois. Our goal and mission to start the chamber was to support entrepreneurs. We just want to make sure that everybody understands the huge amount of Black business owners we have in the Southern Illinois region, and all of our members are local, so shopping local is very important. There are several reasons to support Black businesses, but in Black History Month, it will be super important because we all know that we need to close the racial gap. There are definitely laws in America that kept Black business owners behind. And in Southern Illinois, we need to strengthen our economy. So supporting Black businesses will help you. Once again, why it's so important, you want to empower entrepreneurs, support, create a seat at the table for Black businesses. I feel like we definitely did that in the last few years. And we are also a place for you to go if you're seeking someone who needs a job. You can come to us for Black employees, and we're just a source for you. So, what better way to support Black businesses than to come to our huge third annual Black Expo? We have 57 vendors, so you will have everything you think of to choose from. It will be at the Carbondale Civic Center from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Please follow our social media. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have a website, and if anybody has any questions, you can always email us. Thank you very much.
Our district, so.
We're not town today, so they sent something to be. Carbondale Park District, we probably saw this on the news. They got Governor Pritzker and the IDNR announced $54 million in open land acquisition and development grants post-plan. And Carbondale Park District is one of 111 park districts to receive the grant. They will receive $600,000 to replace the playground equipment at Addicts Park. We are so encouraged to be selected to receive an OSPAD grant. We look forward to the incredible impact this will make on the community. We are excited to make Addicts Park a play destination. All of the staff are looking forward to the unique play opportunities we introduced and the increased accessibility that this new playground will provide. More good news about Lakeland Center and recreation programs that are happening throughout the district. Park District officially called the Lakeland Center our home. We are located at 925 South Giant City Road. We host a wide variety of recreational classes like martial arts, fitness, art programs, environmental nature programs, to name a few. Our programs cover a range of interests and are geared for folks of all ages. We also host summer day camps where each week has different themes such as theater, outdoor adventure, and swimming. Our recreation programs take place year-round. You can find all of our offerings on our website and social media platforms. We also regularly host special events that include outdoor movies, festivals, dances, and our annual egg hunt. We hope you will visit us at our Lakeland Center to participate in the program, check out our special events, or to take advantage of our free co-working space open during business hours.
Our host for today, Director Carbondale Life.
And to those on Zoom, I apologize. I'm kind of wonky. I'll try to figure that out. So, running around like so yes, we've had a change since last year. Diana and at Beacon, the position for the library. I didn't know that we probably would and I'm Cindy Director of Library. So we are continuing on, with many of the same programs. We have a new social work intern, we worker, we're working on, some building projects, replacing our roof, and adding for this year, hopefully, and, adding a mural to our. So it's about springtime, we're going to start with our springtime programs for children, project action for teenagers. So just check our website to keep up to date. Thank you.
Hey, we have here, but, a wonderful book that is a pictorial history of Carbondale. And this is one of the best, I mean, this is not one of, this is the absolute best pictorial, I've ever seen of Carbondale. And if you will just thumb through it, anywhere you turn, you're gonna find something that's really fascinating. If you will, it'll be sitting right over here on the information table. And if you get a chance, take a peek at it and just kind of thumb through it and check it out. I also own one of these. It's written by Betty Mitchell, whose family owns Universal Glass. The skylight here in the library is dedicated in her honor. Okay. Just had Jennifer Carbondale United, Nancy, who was also a council member. Nancy Mack.
Large number of people gathered. The one mother, almost 2 weeks.
I mean, I'm trying that they're confident to tell you that, like, it's literally talking.
Collaborate with the organization. Now the wall is First Christian Church, Women United Network, Carbondale Human Relations Commission, Connecting 60, Center for Empowerment and Justice, Addict Community Board, Neighbor Love Charity, Little Resource Center, Land of Lincoln, Metricon, Black Chamber of Illinois. Take action now, they will do something and we're going to. So we collaborate and got stop. Okay, so they got to stop that. Thank y'all.
One thing going over that list, I was just kind of put the Jennifer Lampkins, 70.
The Center for Empowerment and Justice is a Carbondale-based nonprofit dedicated to assist marginalized people.
I'm Gigi. I was actually a client on the streets for about 6 months. Now I have been off the streets for a year and a half. I came through as a client with the Empowerment Center. They helped me get off the streets. They helped me get through the abusive situation. And that's what our goal is to make sure that everybody's safe, especially people that are out in the streets and are kind of misunderstood. I get nervous, sorry. But Jennifer and them found me sleeping on the sidewalk. They gave me 2 hamburgers, 2 cigarettes, a bottle of water. And while I'm there, because I was my 2 dogs. And I couldn't stay in a shelter because I had 2 dogs. That's how I became part of that. Once I got settled, I joined Jim and everybody at center and I work almost as much as I can to help Jim and everybody else. As much. And everybody brings us clothes, we get food away. We do need socks, hats and, gloves, everybody, if you have them. And make sure they got blankets, especially in cold spring.
You can see that they are really having a positive movement, uh, on the homeless situation. I'd like to piggyback again on what Jennifer, and point towards the, homeless situation with teenagers that are in the foster care system. Once they become 18, they are just kicked out of the system. And if they haven't been prepared by those kind people that are helping them, they have absolutely nowhere to go. I've met several people, young guys, and I looked at them, I'm like, they're homeless. How did you get here? And I looked at them, I'm like, you know absolutely nothing about these streets. Jennifer and the Center for Empowerment has done a wonderful job. So let's keep it moving. Bring her.
Stephanie just sent a text. Tile Sport Trail improvements funded by the ARPA grant is on schedule to be completed this year. Improvements will include trail surface upgrades to ADA friendly standards, including hard packed gravel surfaces and boardwalks. Tile Sport Trail is the one accessible from Addicts Park, getting new equipment, so new destination. Second, we are in the midst of celebrating our 50th year of providing nature preserves and experiences in all Carbondale neighborhoods. Visit our website to see a schedule of monthly events. This month's event is a nighttime luminary hike at our. It will be a beautiful experience. Third, this past year we opened our 7th preserve, the Harris Prairie. This prairie was owned by former board member Ann Harris and lovingly tended over the years. We're excited to be able to offer this little gem.
Keeping Carbondale beautiful, keep Carbondale beautiful, my thought.
I'm like, that's a problem. You might have seen these things around town, you can stuff in the morning bag. Pick up trash, I highly recommend you go. I am Mike Wallace, I'm the executive director of Keep Carbondale Beautiful is a small not-for-profit, big mission. And as such, we need the help of members and volunteers to help us. We facilitate cleanups. One of the things we do is we have an adopt a spot program. And the other thing that we do is we coordinate big organized cleanups. We also encourage people to be picking up trash whenever they're out and about. Going out to pick up trash along 51 after this. You don't need necessarily lots of equipment, just a little bag will do. Another aspect of what we do is beautification. So we do regular bright spot awards, acknowledging places around town that are doing a nice job of keeping nice. We also have a twice annual tree sale. Okay, and I just want to say that that's the material over here. We have upcoming events. I want to say that our tree sale is March 23rd. This year. It's a little early, spring tree stuff. Mark your calendars for that. We're also having our all Carbondale cleanup on April 20. Okay. You're going to become a member, get some information about Adopt a Spot program. We have that. Thank you.
Carmelita Cahill with the Performance Center. While she's coming up, I got a question I wanted to ask. And she wobbles up. Carmelita, did you have to go to the proctologist or the podiatrist?
I'll keep my foot removal service. Good morning, I'm Carmelita King. over the past months now, we were able to be over 35 people. On me and that. So, of course, we were excited to have done that. We have some things coming up. One of our board meetings that we're going to is like very bad. 224, 24. Even something after this celebration. Are we prepared for that? We had some of the trivia night and we had a big report that did an incident. Missing in my report.
Moving right along. Formerly the Women's Center, the Center for Survivor Empowerment Center, formerly the Women's Center.
Recently taken up the community inclusion volunteer manager as well. We're very busy at the center. Our shelter is full, and we just started volunteer training this last week. If anyone is interested in volunteering with us, you can do so in two different capacities, either as an indirect service volunteer, who they usually work in our donation room, do some clerical work, or maybe in particular events, or if you want to do direct service volunteer work, where you interact directly with clients and offering our hotline. That requires 40 hours of mandatory training, and the training will be offered again in the summer and also the fall. We'll have a lot of upcoming events in April, since it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Child Abuse Awareness Month. So we'll have informational tables around town, on the SAU campus, probably County Logan, our satellite offices in Marion and Harrisburg, and also our outreach office at our City Center. And we also want to make a plug for our biggest fundraiser of the year, that's Taste of Chocolate. That's going to April 5th. The tickets, our tickets are a little more this year. There is a full dinner involved. This will take place at the Walker Club and Casino, and tickets will go on sale on our website on Tuesday. Thank you.
Okay, we're actually on the airplane.
Okay, I've got to be clear on this. Okay.
In Washington, D.C., doing what she does best. She wanted me to mention that we have a wide variety of youth and adult programs focused on QIA population and empowerment. Also, community health workers are out this year to provide resource referrals and emotional support to people who we serve. We're also the home of the Carbondale Tool Library, which offers free tool rentals to anyone living in a 2-mile radius of Carbondale. I'm supposed to mention that to access that, you can connect on Facebook. They have a Facebook page that you can message. Rainbow Cafe has also just acquired the building next door, and in the next few months it will be hopefully a clinical center offering additional mental health resources and counseling, as well as expanded HIV and STI. So that's what I got, and my approach for the resource center. So if you put on that hat, I am still Claire Hughes. I am an administrator for the full resource center, which is a family and parenting support
some material, educational, and social support to families, parents, and caregivers. We're best known for our diaper bank, formula bank, and course fund for services we provide to everyone in need. We also offer, what else do we offer? Yoga, breastfeeding, and childbirth education. On April 13th, we will be hosting the Black Maternal Health at New Zion Missionary Baptist Church here in Carbondale. We invite the community to come out, and at 10 we'll have a lot of great speakers and healthcare representatives just to start the communication around Black mental health. I do have flyers, so be sure to grab them. And that's all I got.
Our next presenter is also a double presenter, with our district, going to be Carolyn. And he'll also be presenting for the library for alternate use.
I am not very practicing. That hasn't always felt like it, but it's been a pretty busy year in the other district. Starting with a community-wide meeting to address gun violence last January, which is it's on the last January, and we developed a lot of relationships within the community and with officials at the meeting that have proved invaluable in addressing the issue and root issues. We've also developed a relationship with the company Interpretive Center. If anyone doesn't know, there is a new building on Boston, the community space, and we will attract a lot of attention from the country. So we think that would be a neighborhood. It does still need donations to finish the base group. And then Secretary Jane Adams put together a list of other we held living discussions with the building council candidates, which we think are a good model for having doing democracy in a community where we can all get to know each other, which not other community has. So we do in the future. We also hold a number of social events throughout the year. There's Judy Ashby's St. Patrick's Day Party, which is great kind holiday party. Spring gathering. We supported the owner of the glass house. Spring parties used. So looking forward, I hope that we'll be able to develop more. Okay. I'm suddenly distracted. I don't know. So for the Library for Ultimate Futures, we are a new nonprofit organization with mission support local is basically what people mean when they say equity. Buzzwords. What I do mean, what I'm trying to draw out is changes that don't register as shop system, which actually in here. One of the ways that we'll do that is we have got a collection of thousands of books and materials that are related to community and economic development. And we hope to find a space where we can share those materials and where we can develop relationships to work on projects around our goals. We are planning our annual meeting. It's going to be coming up in probably late February, maybe early March. If you want to, I can set up a little sign-up sheet. And if anybody wants to leave their email, we can let you know exactly when that can be and where. Probably. Sign-up sheet up there. Great. Thank you all. Bye. I like to
Years ago, prior, pre-COVID, when we had these annual meetings, we would attract like 75 to like maybe 100 people. And then it would be it just for that day. One of the beautiful things that came out of COVID was Zoom. And we noticed in the first year, we had over 1,000 clicks. And since then, we've been averaging between 1,000 and 2,000 viewers. Now, this is not just today, but you'll be able to go back and look at this throughout the year. And it's a catalog like that. So that's one of the, so we're not trying to be rude, we're just trying to keep things moving in kind of a comical way. So Sarah has a few announcements.
One, save the date. Please mark on your calendars for the community event on Wednesday, February 28th through 7:30 via Zoom. Homes of the Future in Southern Illinois, a healthcare professionals. At this event, hosted by the Shawnee Group, Bacon Place, Carbondale and the Ways to Eat, Black Graduate Grief Council, and the Citizens Utility Board, a panel of healthcare professionals will offer their perspective on health and equity issues that contributes to our need to transition to clean, affordable heat in our homes and communities. Transition to clean, affordable heat. Following the panel presentation, there will be plenty of time for Q&A. Registration for this event will be widely shared, including on the Shawnee Group of the Sierra Club website and also on our Facebook page at Sierra Club. That's Wednesday, February 28th, 6:30 to 7:30.
We're moving into our reports from last year, updates from last year. The first person would be addressing gun violence. That'd be Diana Big Green.
Actually, it's a little bit of my time because we've had a little interruption on Carbondale was speaking. So I just wanted to kind of let you know that was coming up with the coldest time of year. So that's the event that's happening on February 24th. So if you have not signed up as a walker, have created a team, or if you're still interested in sponsoring or volunteering, you're really welcome to reach out to Jane. I thought that was hard to hear. And also, if you're interested in volunteering, I'm going to serve as the volunteer coordinator. So I guess this is so if you just don't feel like walking and you just greet people and tell them how great they did, or serve some food, also reach out to you. But as mentioned, I'm Diana McGree, and it's really hard. My position is actually fairly new, and so I don't really have much to report on previously. But I can say that, I actually heard from multiple people today that the conversation around gun violence and violence has been stirring for some time. And in 2022, there was a gun violence assessment report that was conducted by researchers with SIU that examined more of the what and the wheres, but it didn't examine the why. And so something that we've been looking at, or my position is really understanding some of those root causes of gun violence. So I've been asked to create a strategic plan that will launch this May. But as I create that strategic plan based on the advice of my advisory council, they really want me to start fresh. So you're going to probably start seeing some things out there, initiating some fresh and new research, understanding the why of our community. And then also, I'm going to be wearing multiple hats. And so in the meantime, I'm also going to be doing some different events that really understand that systemic nature, and that systemic racism is a part of that nature. And many of this room have had the opportunity to receive a recent grant, the Healing Illinois grant by the IDHS. So I know there's several people in this room who had the opportunity to do that in partnership with the Phil Foundation and some of the Community Foundation. So we're very fortunate. We're the state of Carbondale also was a recipient of that to help support our At the Table Dinner and Dialogue series, which is focused on understanding issues around race and culture and racial healing. So those are going to be on the third Tuesday of every month through June. And so look forward to many events across the Southern Illinois region that are wrapped around racial healing. So I know Program United, I think, is one of those also. And so keep an eye out for those, participate in those, and make sure you're engaging in that. But we understand that violence, when it sometimes has to hit home, and we don't want it to always have to hit home for those to be engaged in certain advocacy. But we do know for those that hit home, they have to need a healing from that trauma. So we want to make sure that we're providing trauma-informed opportunities and working with partners from across the community and connecting those dots so that we can help be healed. Another event that I'm going to be doing in April is I'm going to be also having a community healing picnic. So that's going to be as part of the Healing Memorial Project. So we hope that many people come, share their stories, and we can also strengthen survivor voices at that event, because that's also going to be in coordination with the National Week of the Crime Victims, the National Crime Victims Resource Awareness Week. Sorry, it's not full. So for that also, I'll be hosting a conference at SIU that brings together researchers, those who are providing services in our community, and those who are survivors, and also helping to work with Carbondale Library. So we can also have a special selection of wonderful books that amplify those victims' voices, and then also providing a creative workshop as an outlet for therapeutic healing. If you have any questions or like to volunteer for future events or participate at the table talks, just let me know. I can add you to that list and get you more involved.
The items, Kelsey Ball.
I'm Kelsey with Greater Region for Regional Planning and Development Commission. If you guys have heard of us, we serve a lot of counties in Southern Illinois. Our main five are Jackson, Williamson, Perry, and Jefferson. We're a regional government organization focusing on comprehensive planning for economic, transportation, and environmental. So I'm here today to talk about our the Island project, which began last year through an EPA grant. It's part of a larger water quality project counties with some farmers, but we wanted to bring in urban grant. And one of the things I wanted to measure was urban heat island. So if you've ever walked across the Walmart parking lot in July, you have experienced an urban heat island. Urban areas, due to their high development and low canopy coverage, means they are hotter than other areas of comparison. So downtown Carbondale is hotter than a mile away. So to map this, we use a variety of factors. So temperature, obviously, look for satellite data, as well as the city zones, walking and biking paths, because people who are using that sort of infrastructure are going to be suffering more than if you're in a car with air conditioning. So a lot of factors came into that, and the results are on that map. We also have an interactive story map. The next slide has a QR code for it, and it's also on our website. It looks best on desktop, but that QR code goes to the mobile version as well if you want to scan it. And it goes through all of the methods. It shows the map that you can do data, where the spots are the hottest in the city, and what we sort of want to do about it in the future. And there's also a comment form on it. So if you read through the story map and make it all the way to the bottom, there's a survey. Would love your input. And you share all of those survey results with the city. And then I have one more slide. You guys may have seen in the news that Carbondale is getting a stormwater master plan. That is a partnership with the Egypt, which is my department. So planning just began in January. We just got
moving right along. Represent the city. One of the long-standing project. Want to know anything about the communities around, you want to talk to John.
My state. I need an introduction. I said I really don't need a microphone. Anybody knows me. But, point of trivia, talk about telling people something you don't know. Did anybody else live actually in the Arbor District when Buckminster Fuller lived in the Arbor District? Anybody? And you and me were the only people. So I thought that was a neat thing. We used to play down on a vacant lot about a half a block from Buckman's house. And one of the things about community development, we do a lot of collaboration, a lot of reviews and stuff. So we've been really happy to work with the Buckminster Fuller Dome, as well as with Green Earth, Keep Carbondale Beautiful, so many other groups. Community development departments often historically thought of as just a cleaning department. And that was great. But as our society evolves and moves in the different directions and stuff, there's so many things that we bring into that. So collaboration is big. Positivity is the other thing. Green probably started the day by watching Mr. Rogers reruns, and all that. I started the day by watching a recording I had of Willie Nelson's 90th birthday celebration. I'm a big Willie fan, and so I feel like that positivity is something that we need in Carbondale. I try and bring that to my department. Try and bring a lot of creativity. We have so much different things going on. One of the big things that we have going on, first of all, it's fairly well publicized, our housing grant. It's a program that is funded solely by the city of Carbondale. It's not some grant from the federal government, HUD, or Rural Housing Development. This has been going on since 2017. We started off kind of slow. Believe it or not, community development does not have like its own marketing, company that they hire to do it. A lot of word of mouth or Facebook or whatever else. But it started off really slow. So like back in 2017, we did like 5 curb appeal grants, like 1 down payment assistance, 2 conversions. Past couple of years, though, it has really taken off. So we have done now, like last year in 23, we did 25 rental conversion grants. So that's where somebody goes in, city gives them $5,000 to buy a house. It's been a rental for at least 2 years prior. That person comes in and turns it into their own residence for a minimum of 5 years. So we did 25 last year. We did 19 this year so far in fiscal 24. So I have some business cards on the table there. If you want information like that, contact me. There's a wealth of information. I'll do it on time, so we'll go through. But it is a great program. If somebody is looking for a house or looking to rehab a present house they have. We also have a curb appeal grant, which is a $3,000 match. So if you need a roof, you need windows, siding, new driveway, look us up. Very proud of the program. Another program that, while it's not exclusively in community development, we've had some input into the creation of it, is the downtown code compliance grant. So the neat thing about this is a lot of times people that have been in city government for a long time, I'm sure that Mr. Doherty would testify to this. Sometimes you feel like you're like the center of the bullseye of negativity, that people aim all the slings and arrows at you. And sometimes that happens, especially during times like COVID. The neat thing about the downtown code compliance grant is that was something that we came up with economic development. And so you see places like PKs and Boobies and stuff like that, as a beneficiary of that. We're also doing some great things with sustainability, with bikes, preservation. We're currently in the midst of doing a preservation survey of the Northeast side, which is turning up some really great information. Last year, we got a local designation for Attic School. So there's some cards on there. I know another thing, one last thing before they throw me off the stage is rental licensing. A lot of people have been talking about rental licensing, landlord licensing. That will be up for discussion at the February 13th City Council meeting. So if you're interested in that or know someone is, please let them know. Okay, wearing 2 hats today. Molly Maxwell, who is senior planner, was not able to be here. She had an event yesterday and was late getting back, so I promised I would cover for her.
she is in charge of developing our new comprehensive plan. So a comprehensive plan is about every 10 to 15 years, the city by code is supposed to develop a comprehensive plan. Traditionally, that has been zoning. So like, you're on R1 zone, multifamily zone, in a commercial zone, and some other transportation type of stuff sometimes. This time when we go about it, we're trying to do, again, broaden our horizons a little bit, get a more collaborative effort. Look about things like sustainability. Also look at business, look at more transportation, let's say walkable, bikeable, community type of stuff is a very big deal. The RFQ, the request for qualifications, should be out soon for our consultant. And so, look for more news about that. That will be something where we will have a lot of opportunity for community interaction, community input on that. And then we hope that will also lead us into maybe a modernization, I'll put it, of our current codes, especially when it comes into planning and zoning. I don't want to talk about that too much because this is something that we hope, after getting feedback from the community and discussions with our consultants, that we actually find out what this is going to look like. And I don't want to get too presumptuous. A lot of people throw out the words form-based code and things like that. Maybe not. Okay. It's quite a complicated issue, and everybody does have some, input on it. So thank you.
Well, our agenda calls for us right now to take a pause for the cause. So if you want to just stand up and stretch in place or relieve yourself, we'll take about 5 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll be in the hands of Ms. Clam. And so just stand up. And if you're anything like me, if I sit too long, I get stiff.
Can I make 1 5-second announcement?
Sure, come on.
One more thing I forgot to mention, the Arbor District annual meeting. Arbor District annual meeting is tomorrow, February 4th, 3 p.m. at St. Xavier's at the meeting room, fronting on Elm Street.
Yeah. I can't even information about what The whole I have, I may have one in. Oh, okay, like you want, yeah, are you glad to? Should I just? Yeah, I know.
Okay, if we can kind of come together again and reassemble ourselves and continue with our presentations. Gail Clam. Dooby dooby doo, doo dooby dooby, Scooby dooby doo, doo 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 doo, Scooby dooby doo, doo doo da doo da doo. Okay, yo, you want some more? Dooby dooby doo, doo 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 doo, doo doo doo. Mr. Doherty, would you please sit down? Okay. Gail, if you will come and make the introductions for us.
Hi, my name is Gail Clam, and I'm here today as a member of the Sustainability Commission to introduce to you our city's Sustainability Director, Lauren Becker. In setting up the city's Sustainability Department, the city of Carbondale recognized that the prosperity of our community is not at odds with our ecosystem. The city needed to start developing a sustainability lens through which to look at city activities. And I think we have found just the perfect person to help us do just that. Coming from a small rural community of just 800 people, Lauren attended the University of Wisconsin. While there, she gained great experience serving as the director of the Student Office of Sustainability and the co-chair of the Chancellor's Sustainability and Climate Task Force. As a community-focused environmental geographer, she brings to our community an innovative outsider's perspective as to what we do right and what we do wrong. As a newcomer, she is open to community ideas and suggestions on how we can improve the environment of our community. Lauren has the education, the experience, and the background to help us develop a sustainable environmental future for our community. Although only here for a short time, she has been very instrumental in helping Carbondale apply for, and in some cases obtain, significant grants toward a sustainable city. I think she'll be a great asset as long as she is here working for us. I thank you. I bring you Lauren.
Thank you for the introduction, Gail. That was, thank you. Hello, folks. I appreciate the fact that we all got a chance to get up and stretch. I know when I've been sitting for a while, I've got to shake my limbs out so that I'm not having the wiggles while I'm listening. I want to start off our time together by being transparent about who I am and where I come from and why I'm hoping to engage in conversation today. My name is Lauren Becker, and I work for the people of Carbondale through our municipal government. Before moving here with my partner and putting down roots, I lived in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. My background is in environmental geography, as Gail shared, sustainability coordination, and indigenous methods. However, the place that raised me, the people that taught me to be diligent and community-centered, are the 800 souls of Blanchardville, an agricultural community in southern Wisconsin. I grew up in the church. I grew up in our public school system. I grew up in the woods, and I grew up rural. I do not subscribe to traditional environmentalism, which is predominantly white and Western. There is no way to mitigate the climate crisis without dismantling white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. The work that I do related to climate is centered in my love for people and my stubbornness. I am unwilling to let this be the end of the human story. And I think that we all here today are on the same page with that. Today, our Neighborhood Alliance meeting has covered a variety of topics, from risks and hazards, to urban heat islands, to housing programs and comprehensive planning. Now we're going to talk about a proposal that sits at the nexus of each of these topics: energy sovereignty, security, and democracy. My intention today is to share an idea, tell the story of how we came to it, and learn what you all think. At the end of this presentation, I will ask whether you'd like to see continued exploration of the proposal. If at any time nature calls or you need to get a drink of water, please do so. We want this space to be comfortable. With that, let's begin. Oh, I think it should be on now. There we go. Okay. We know that we must pump the emergency brakes on greenhouse gas emissions. And the actions we take now have the most impact because our efforts are compounded over time, just like a retirement savings account. The actions we take now to reduce our emissions have the potential to reduce the largest volume of CO2e. The first step towards achieving tangible emission reduction requires identifying baseline emission levels, sources, and activities generating emissions in the community. This data is critical as it provides a baseline against which we can compare future performance and demonstrate progress in reducing emissions. And the good news is, we already have this data. In May of 2022, I completed our first community-scale greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and this is what I found. When we combine the energy sectors, we see that energy as a whole represents 66% of the Carbondale community's annual greenhouse gas and equivalent source emissions, while transportation and mobile sources represents 30.6%. Simplified, our community energy use is responsible for 2/3 of our source emissions, while our transportation methods are responsible for nearly 1/3. This means that we have two primary target areas for source reduction. Thank you, Jennifer. Energy and transportation. However, our community has spoken. We do not want to limit ourselves solely to carbon reductionist thinking. The Carbondale Community's Sustainability Action Plan, some of the authors are here with us today, commits us to pursuing solutions that have multiple benefits and co-benefits for our community beyond carbon reduction. We have not succeeded if we build net zero homes that our community members cannot afford. We have not succeeded if only the wealthy can afford organic produce. We must pump the brakes on greenhouse gas emissions in a way that combats poverty at the source, guarantees access to affordable, reliable, and renewable energy for all, ensures family-sustaining and fulfilling job creation, builds and maintains resilient infrastructure, ensures access to affordable, healthy, quality housing for all, encourages localized resource generation and dollar flow, designs systems of community wealth building, fosters local decision-making, blends renewable energy and agriculture for mutual benefit, and reduces adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. This means that we must pursue energy sovereignty. Energy sovereignty is an approach to the energy resource that prioritizes public ownership and decision-making to foster local self-sufficiency, improved capacity, resource conservation, community wealth building, political autonomy, and lasting economic prosperity. All right, so that was a long list. How do we do this? Energy is a tricky topic, in part because our system, our current system, treats it like an individual decision. Our energy use is a result of a number of factors, like where we live, the age of our home, whether our landlord performs energy efficiency improvements, whether we ourselves have the time, money, or knowledge to perform energy efficiency improvements, and how big our families are. And the burden surrounding energy and climate is almost always placed on the shoulders of those of us who cannot afford it. As a community of persistent poverty and a recovering energy community, the majority of us either don't have control over our energy source as renters, or cannot afford the upfront costs associated with distributed renewable energy or deep energy retrofits. And we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to become energy experts overnight to see a transition to renewable energy. Thanks, Jennifer. I believe that the city of Carbondale has a responsibility to make the thing that's best for our community, our ecosystem, and our wallets the thing that happens by default. This is the root of the vision of energy sovereignty, security, and democracy. In order to share with you all the working solution, I first need to lay out the problems we're trying to solve. Problems I know each and every one of us in this room wrestles with. Energy problem number one. The once family-sustaining coal industry has been phased out of the Illinois basin, leaving craterous gaps in the economic and social fabric of our recovering energy communities. Number two, volatile and escalating energy costs from investor-owned utilities continue to pummel our community of persistent poverty with no sign of relief. Number three, access to affordable, reliable, and distributed renewable energy supply remains out of reach for the majority of our community members who are not homeowners. And the burden of increasing energy efficiency remains on the shoulders of primarily those who cannot afford it. Despite the forward-thinking solar programs available for Illinois residents, the Illinois Power Agency acknowledges that the program is still not reaching those who need it most. Number four, increased demand on our grid and aging infrastructure threatens the security and resilience of our energy resource. National statistics show that annual weather-related power outages in the United States have doubled over the last 2 decades as ever more powerful storms batter the nation's aging grid. Number five, and this is the nuance. Although energy sovereignty was outlined in the State of Illinois' Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA, traditional avenues for non-tax entities to secure the benefits of the ITC have been limited to either tax equity partnerships or third-party lease agreements like PPAs, power purchase agreements, in which a private entity owns the asset. Although both options encourage the installation of renewable energy, they also often result in dollar flow out of communities and require the separation of the environmental attribute, the renewable energy credits, from the physical energy flowing through our infrastructure in order to finance the system. This allows out-of-state private equity partners to reap the fiscal incentives available rather than our communities. There has to be a better way. And there is. Right now, we're seeing the largest wave of federal funding we'll see in our lifetimes through the Inflation Reduction Act. With this wave comes a new tax policy. It's called the elective pay provision. But when we first became aware of it in January of 2023, it was called direct pay. The elective pay provision, now confirmed through the U.S. Treasury and the IRS, allows non-tax entities like the city of Carbondale to receive the same tax incentives that have been available for private entities for years. Before this moment, private developers were the only ones who truly had the ability to construct transformative projects. Now we have that same power. The elective pay provision, when combined with the stackable tax incentives available for clean energy investment, would allow our community to recuperate the costs of a renewable energy plus storage system by up to 50%. This is game-changing. As a result, in February of 2023, just a year ago, I began to tease out what this could mean for us. I began to investigate what our community would want this to mean for us. I started talking to folks, confirming that yes, we were interpreting the tax policy correctly, confirming that yes, our community wants to see us think big. And from these conversations, a vision began to form. Jennifer, would you mind clicking the next? Thank you. A vision for a publicly owned solar plus storage system that blends energy and agriculture for mutual benefit. Here is the pitch. The city of Carbondale and the village of Dowell, Illinois, in partnership, seek to leverage the elective pay provision to access stackable federal tax incentives for solar plus storage, reducing the cost of constructing this asset by up to 50%. This allows our communities to implement what we've coined the Energy Sovereignty, Security, and Democracy proposal, in which public ownership of a large-scale agrivoltaic system paired with closed-loop pump storage hydropower, PSH, exceeds our respective communities' annual community-scale net energy consumption. In this system, public ownership of the asset means that any energy we conserve is energy we can sell into the wider deregulated Illinois energy market at a premium price due to its retention of the environmental attribute, those RECs, the renewable energy credits, and its availability during times of peak demand and grid strain. The heart of this proposal and core intention is that by balancing our revenue generation with revenue sharing, we can provide every single home and locally owned and operated small business within city limits with low to no cost, 100% renewable energy under a maximum use threshold. In this model, additional energy consumers in city limits, i.e. healthcare, higher education, and box stores, will be offered affordable, stable, 100% renewable power with the RECs retained, reducing our community scale greenhouse gas emissions by almost 70% with one capital construction project. Our partnership allows us to demonstrate it's possible to decarbonize 2 American energy sheds at the scale of a population 21,741 community and a population 364 community. Now, if you're a visual person like me, this next slide is for you. Thanks, Jennifer. It puts the structure that I just described into a picture. In this model, public ownership of the asset, which is overbuilt to produce more energy than we consume as a community, allows us to sell any excess energy produced into the wider deregulated energy market. These sales to the wider grid, both those in city limits and those outside city limits, allow us to offset the cost of energy for every home and locally owned and operated small business under a maximum use threshold, regardless of home ownership. This spurs instinctive public investment in reducing energy consumption at a community scale. The city of Carbondale and the village of Dowell would suddenly have direct fiscal incentive to provide programs almost identical to our current housing programs that Mr. Lenzini mentioned earlier, to provide the upfront capital necessary for a community member to see deep energy retrofits in their home or the installation of distributed renewable energy. In this model, those who have existing distributed solar installations before and after the project is placed in service would be compensated at an equal or better rate than their current net metering agreement. This transforms our local energy shed into a set of lungs, with each of us breathing in and out of the system, truly localizing our energy. This cuts through the confusion surrounding our state's solar programs. This cuts through the bad faith door-to-door salespeople that are preying on our community members. This strengthens the reliability of our energy resource in the face of rolling blackouts. This strengthens our region's ability to offer stable 100% renewable energy with the RECs retained to our community members. The proposal has the capacity to bring the monthly energy burden for our community members to zero immediately, reducing poverty and, by extension, adverse childhood experiences at the source. This proposal brings us a renewable energy export that will only grow in wealth as we reduce our energy consumption, allowing us to use standard ground mount solar as a stopgap measure to distributed solar. This proposal has the capacity to be revenue positive while having the well-being of our community members as its core intention. The ripple effect of demonstrating this cannot be overstated. This proposal would cut our annual greenhouse gas emissions by nearly 70%. Oh, would you mind going back a few? Thank you. With one capital construction project. Suddenly, these emissions before us feel a lot less daunting. Suddenly, they feel manageable. All while addressing each of the problems we face on our terms. We have the chance to put the energy asset back into the hands of the people. We have the chance to ensure that our renewable energy is blended with agriculture for mutual benefit, so there is no competition between feeding ourselves and powering our homes. We have the chance to have complete control over where projects are located, who they serve, and how they benefit us. We have the chance to ensure that our renewable energy asset provides critical ecosystem services in addition to carbon sequestration. We have the chance to ensure that lasting local positions are created with brick and mortar locations and partnership with our CJO Workforce Hub. We have the chance to ensure that the family-sustaining jobs that are created are fulfilling, and priority choice of employment is for those who are experiencing re-entry after incarceration, those who have experienced the foster care system, and those who are experiencing poverty. We have the chance to ensure that the just clean energy transition utilizes mature storage technology and public ownership to create a new sustainable export for our community that feeds our people first. Thank you. To date, we've conducted 26 community consultations on this concept. We have secured over 40 hours of technical assistance from the National Renewable Energy Lab and Lo Bono Legal Counsel from Lawyers for Good Government. In May of 2023, I presented publicly for the first time to the Carbondale City Council and was met with approval to continue exploration. In June of 2023, we secured the Just Transition Fund's Application Ready Grant. In July 2023, the City of Carbondale and the Village of Dowell were awarded the Department of Energy's Energizing Rural Communities Prize. In September 2023, we submitted to the USDA's RUS PACE program and the World Resource Institute's Ross Center Prize for Cities. In November of 2023, we partnered with the National Renewable Energy Lab, Elevate Energy, who manages the state's solar programs, and Lawyers for Good Government to submit for a $500,000 planning grant through the Department of Energy, which would allow us to take the next step, a comprehensive technical, legal, and financial analysis of this proposal. We are currently receiving technical assistance from the National Renewable Energy Lab and the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory through the Clean Energy to Communities Expert Match Program. Yet I must stress this. No decisions have been made. We have not determined location, ownership structure, or the most suitable technology. We are still very much in the exploration stage of this proposal. One request that I've heard from our community members since arriving in Carbondale, hearing from our community members loud and clear, is a desire to be brought in as a stakeholder early and often as we pursue project development. Here it is, folks. we are here early and often. This proposal has the capacity to address each of the concerns that were laid out at the beginning of this presentation. We know that no one is coming to save us, so we will save one another. Thank you. With that, I would like to open this up to a conversation. I wish, we could be sitting in a circle and maybe do an exchange of names, but I know we're limited on time. So I'd like to open up to questions first, clarification on what this proposal looks like, how we got here. And then if you're willing, I'd like to learn your responses to each of the questions here. Would you like to see continued exploration? What hasn't been considered yet? Who else should we be speaking to? And how best should communication occur?
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Has this model been created anywhere else?
We have seen other communities that are public power utilities make use of the tax incentives that are available through power purchase agreements. But prior to the elective pay provisions implementation, communities could not own their own asset with the assistance of these tax incentives. So what we're proposing, in short, has not been done before. We've seen different variations, but none have been so equity focused.
Well, that's not a negative in my opinion. And the initial outlay, that 50% would be covered, but what would the initial outlay approximately be for the community?
Yeah, I hesitate to give an exact number because we need to have that financial and investment analysis conducted by Elevate Energy, but we are talking about a large scale capital outlay, hundreds of millions of dollars. But when we start to factor in that tax incentive that's available, we would be missing a once in a lifetime opportunity to reduce that capital outlay by 50%, especially when we're talking about a revenue generating asset. I don't know if we have any energy buffs in the room who pay attention to what the going market rate is wholesale for renewable energy, so energy that has those RECs. But we could be talking about millions of dollars in revenue brought in by the system purely from the sale of our excess energy. Yeah, did that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? I have a mobile here.
Hi, Lauren. So I think the people in this room probably have the power to bring our community's viewpoints into the development of this system. As we go out and have conversations with people, I'm sure that we'll find a lot of interest. There's a lot to grab onto. It would be great to have a way in those conversations to give them concrete ways to participate. So what kinds of meetings either are planned or could be planned where we can invite people from our communities to come into the conversation?
Great question. The first thing that I'd say is at this point in time, the meetings have been mostly me cold calling and reaching out to organizations and asking to have a conversation. So any of those conversations are open to the wider public through the orgs that they're a part of. But I'm going to turn the question back a little bit and ask, how would you all like to be communicated to about this? How would you like to find out updates? I have a feeling that our existing communication channels aren't quite going to be up to snuff in terms of updates. So I'd like to hear from you. What's the best way to hear? What's the best way to remain in touch?
Okay. Okay, Mary.
Well, I'm thinking of a couple things, and Lauren did come to our study circles group, and as a result, we wanted to have her here today. And in thinking about some of the other things we talked about there, we heard about Lauren's outreach, and some of you may have noticed those sheep that were in the slideshow there. And I think it would be interesting to bring those farmers you've talked to about how this fits in with food security issues. And also to hear from the people of Dowell, to bring them into the conversation with us somehow would be interesting, so we could share our belief and questions. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can speak off of Mary's point for a moment about consultations that have occurred with local ag producers thus far. My goal, coming from an agrarian community myself, was not to propose something that would require additional workload to our local farmers. My goal in consultations thus far has been to figure out whether or not there is a value added to agrivoltaics. Does this type of proposal provide a benefit to our local ag producers? And what I learned is it does. It was quite interesting to learn that here in Southern Illinois, we actually have an untapped market for sheep meat. Did anyone else know this? I was not aware. Apparently, we have quite a few community members who are looking for halal sheep meat, and are looking for especially small local producers to provide that product. Folks in St. Louis and our community are looking for that. And our local ag producers, the folks that I've spoken with, are not able to increase the size of their flocks and respond to that market need because they simply don't have the acreage. They don't have the space. So this type of model would combine low-growing perennial fodder for sheep and low-growing ecosystem supportive planting. So we're talking more traditional prairie landscape, deep root systems that perform carbon sequestration. We're pairing that sort of a model, that sort of a landscape for the solar with agreements with our local producers. The specifics of those agreements, whether or not they're land leases or whether or not it's a pilot where ag producers are not charged, is yet to be determined by our community. But it would allow our farmers to increase the acreage that they could feed their flocks off of and expand. So supporting our local ag producers, supporting that economic development in our region, all the while increasing carbon sequestration and having a dual use solar system. As an ag-raised person, nothing grinds my gears more than seeing single-use solar when it could be dual use or more. There are ways for us to be stewards of the land that are forward-thinking and conservation-focused. So in those conversations thus far, there are quite a few producers in our region who don't want to be on a daily basis loading their sheep up in the trailer and dropping them off at a parcel of land. What we would be proposing is a longer term model, maybe over a 12-month period, working with them to ensure that there is water on site. And what's interesting is here in Southern Illinois, our ag producers, if they have small flocks, they need to put up pop-up tents in their fields, in their pastures, in order to give the sheep enough shade during these times of really high solar intensity. So what this blending of sheep and solar does, what this agrivoltaics model does, is provides shade and provides increased moisture retention of the fodder that's actually being fed. That's another point. They will have to supplement feed. They'll have to supplement what the flocks are eating when it gets so dry here that there's not enough moisture retained in the fodder for them. So solar, it turns out, provides quite the value add to our local ag producers, which has instilled in me confidence that it's appropriate to propose. It's a bit of a lengthy answer, but good context to provide. Yeah, none of this has been happening within a vacuum. So thank you for pointing that out, Mary.
I'd like to add before we go a little further. You might have heard her mention halal, and halal is the Muslim dietary equivalent to kosher. Just so you know.
Thank you for the clarification.
Hi, yeah, Jessica Bradshaw. I was at the FoodWorks conference last Saturday, and there were a lot of, I don't know if you were there too, there were a lot of people talking about what you were just saying, the combination of ag and solar. And so I think there's definitely a partnership that could be had there. And the other thing I just went blank on. I interviewed for a job, and it was part of, they had all this CEJA money, and they were looking for schools to partner with. And so that's another place that we should, think about reaching out to, especially because schools, especially SIU, when I worked there, this would bother me that they had all this parking and everybody complained about how hot it would get in the summer in their cars, and maybe we could just get some shade. And I'm like, there's a solution. You put up solar covered parking lots, and so that would be a potential partnership with SAU or with the local schools.
That is a great insight, Jessica, and I would love to connect with you more. We are working with SIU, and they've received quite a few presentations. Quite a bit of connection has occurred, especially through the Communities LEAP pilot program. So Jackson County received this Department of Energy technical assistance, which has brought together this coalition of folks who have very similar goals in Jackson County. And that's actually how I was able to be connected with Jan Phillips, who is a member of our Jackson County board and also a strong community member of Dowell. So he and Debbie Gresham, the mayor of Dowell, we regularly have coffee to hatch different visioning. They provide updates on what community engagement has occurred in Dowell, and we collaborate on the grant applications. That's Penny's Perks if you've ever been over to Dowell. It's a great spot. Significant collaboration. And it takes us getting into a room together like this. Thank you for that.
Anyone else? Someone else there. Okay. Oh, Gail. Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious, how do you anticipate Ameren and Greater Region Co-op? How do you expect them to respond to this proposal?
I think that so one important thing to mention is that we have already had numerous conversations with our rural electric cooperatives. So both both Egyptian Electric Cooperative and Southern Illinois Power Cooperative. I did not want, and I still don't want, this type of proposal to be creating friction with our rural electric cooperatives who already do such a great job keeping rates low and responding to the concerns of their members of the co-op. So I needed to make sure that this proposal was not providing friction for those co-ops, but that we would actually be providing a value. Again, the same as the approach to our ag producers. So I approached those conversations asking whether or not this proposal would provide a value to them. And it turns out that by increasing the storage capacity and the production capacity surrounding renewable energy here in Southern Illinois, we would not only be increasing our renewable energy portfolio as a community, but we would be increasing the capacity of our wider grid to support the consumption of renewable energy across Southern Illinois. So this proposal The hope is that we see a duplication, we see replication of this model when we prove it out into the wider Southern Illinois region, out into the wider United States to say, hey, it is possible for you, whether or not you are a community of 364 or a community of 21,000. It is possible to put local prosperity first. So receiving that, confirmed that there was a value added to our rural electric cooperatives. When it comes to our investor-owned utility, I think that their response will very much depend on the type of ownership model that we would pursue. So when we talk about energy, we're talking about both the supply side and then the transmission and distribution side of things. There are a variety of ownership models that are along a sliding scale, depending on how much control our community would like to have. We can take a look at just the ownership of the supply side of things, just the supply and storage side of things, or we could take a look at creative partnerships with folks such as Ameren or Egyptian Electric on that transmission and distribution side of things. Really, it comes down to how much control our community members would like to have over the energy resource, and legally, what different ownership models provide us. So for instance, if we want to be able to offer, I don't know if anybody here has solar on their rooftop already. You probably have a net metering agreement, likely with Ameren, given where we are in the community. You are getting paid pennies on the dollar. And I'm sorry, Ameren, but you're getting paid pennies on the dollar for the solar that you produce. You overproduce, and you are paying them dollars on the penny for the energy that you're receiving back during times when you're not seeing such high production. There are different types of ownership models that would provide us with the opportunity to, in owning this asset as the public, as the community of Carbondale and Dowell, providing more competitive net metering agreements so that even as this type of proposal goes into effect, folks are still interested in pursuing rooftop solar because they want to see that compensation come back. They want to see not only their bill brought to zero, but they want to see their rooftop producing solar, producing this asset, generating this asset, and this sustainable export for our community. That's why I describe the model as a set of lungs. The idea that suddenly, we're not tossing that excess solar into the abyss, into the grid, but it's known that that is helping serve your neighbor who maybe has a very shaded rooftop and can't install solar, or maybe serving a school that's very shaded and can't install solar, or a church that hasn't got the funding yet, but is working on it. What's beautiful about this model is we can stack the incentives that are already available at the federal and the state level. So under this model, we get access to that federal tax incentive, that 50%. And then in addition, if, Tada, if you decided I'm going to install solar on my roof, you also get access to that 30% federal tax incentive as a private homeowner. And then we take a look at programs that can be offered by the city to increase the upfront capital that's available for you. So there's a blending and a braiding of funding streams that make this proposal revenue positive. That's our hunch. That's what we're thinking. Yes. So earlier in the presentation, I mentioned a storage system. It's called closed loop pumped storage hydropower. And now if you're like me, when I hear about hydropower, I go, oh, I don't know. I've heard a lot about disruptions to water flow and the natural ecosystem. Closed loop pumped storage hydropower is disconnected from any sort of flowing water body. It says, nope, we're not going to impede the flow of water, which we know is critical to water movement throughout our watersheds. We're going to take a look at already existing water bodies, one at a higher elevation and one at a lower elevation, that can serve us as essentially a water battery. 95% of the utility scale storage in the United States is pumped storage hydropower. And what this does is during times where the sun is shining, you're getting high production, the wind is blowing, what have you, you're using that excess energy in that moment to pump water up to the higher reservoir. And then during times where you're not seeing as high of production, maybe it's cloudy, maybe it's nighttime, you're taking that water and the potential energy that's held in it at that upper reservoir is gravity fed back down to the lower reservoir. And it spins a turbine, almost identical to the way that a turbine is spun with steam in coal-fired power plants. It is not a new technology. It is quite old and quite reliable. You even see small-scale hydropower used even way back. I'll say, my grandparents, great-grandparents, their dairies would have been a combination of wind and hydropower, and that was what was powering the home before we had all the lines heading out into our rural spaces. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
I was just thinking about like updates and communication.
Yes.
I mean, maybe like a newsletter, and I don't want to put more work on you, but like an email newsletter, and people could sign up for it, and that would give us like concrete updates. But I'm also, I think about the presentation. I mean, I've met with you one-on-one, and I'm all about it. But I feel like there's certain people, like especially maybe like young people, literally one slide, how does this benefit us? Or like there's certain communities who just want to know like, what's this going to do for us? I think that would be really good. And I also think like, have you presented to like the high school or like those populations? Because I know that there are kids who are going to jump on board, and like, I feel like there's a certain age where like we're like set in our ways, maybe, where I feel like that younger generation is going to come on board this more than certain people would.
That's a great idea, Chastity. Yeah, mental note for both. And I appreciate that feedback about the one slide. How does this benefit me? I'll be transparent with y'all. I am wordy. You figured that out by now. And I have a tendency to over communicate. I think that that's a facet of working in local government. I just want you to know that there's no curtain. There's nothing going on behind the curtain. I've pulled it back, and this is everything. But when we have engaged in relationship building together, that allows me to be more concise and more succinct and say, okay, here it is, cut and dry. Yeah, so I appreciate that. And any other feedback, if folks want to take this presentation, pick it apart and say, if I had to revise it into 3 slides, I will take any and all of the feedback and perspective. Yeah, this is really going to be a community scale communication effort, because I'm learning here in Carbondale that the best way to communicate something that's going on is word of mouth. And that's something that I love about us.
Sandy? We want to hear you on video.
We do have a neighborhood, what is it called? It just slipped my mind. Communicate that you can sign up for, and actually our sign-in form, that last column I found out, if you want to opt out of that, but it's a good way to know what is going on through the city government. And I think that would be a good way, because we can get more people to sign up for it. The more people who see it, the more information is disseminated.
Dr. Stiles, we want to hear you.
I'm sorry, you can hear me. Yeah. It's related to what Chastity said, and also Sandy. I was thinking about the Black community, in my opinion, is hard to reach on a lot of different things. But if we try to reach them individually, that's been a big problem in this town over time. However, if, for instance, there were some conference type deals arranged with places like the Victory Dream Center, New Zion Baptist Church, Hopewell Baptist Church, Faith Temple Church of God in Christ, it could be a conflagration of them together. So like 1 or 2 big ones, and then some plan things for individuals later, individual gatherings later. And then another thing is, I know this might sound primitive to all of these people in this room because you've been working so hard for so many years, but WDBX radio has gospel programs every week. Now, a large number of people, diverse, not only just Black, but Black, white, and a lot of people listen to those gospel programs. And the people who do those are very committed to getting out information. So if they had you, if you were could just come by for 10 minutes one morning and say, this is what I do, and this is how you can work with me, that would be a help. And plus you can come back several times, you know. So that's just something else to consider. Thank you.
Did everybody hear?
Thank you, Dr. Stalls. That's fantastic. Could I get that if you wrote those groups, perfect. I would love to reach out to them. Oh, of course. Yeah, okay.
So I had a suggestion and a question. The first suggestion is social media to get the word out. Maybe, I don't know if you have a page, if you do a TikTok, that's popular not only with the younger people, but the older people. My husband sit on TikTok all day long looking at videos. So that might be a way to reach some people about what's going on. So clearly I heard about how this is going to help everybody, but when I seen cannabis and poverty, could you expand a little further on how that will be a help and anything else that would affect the Black community? I would like to know about, so I can be one of those people who spread the word of mouth.
Definitely. Thank you. I'm going to start with your second point first. So at one of the first Black Chamber of Commerce events that I attended here in Carbondale, I had heard during that event that it is particularly difficult for Black-owned businesses to afford the cost of brick and mortar locations in our community. My hope is that by ensuring that the cost of energy, entirely renewable energy, is brought down to as close to zero as possible for our homes and for our locally owned and operated small businesses, that we will be reducing the barriers to entry and those barriers to operation, especially for Black-owned businesses, who oftentimes have a more difficult time getting access to capital through traditional streams. So that's the answer to the second point that you made. The first question focused on poverty, focused on how does this reduce poverty? How are folks doing in terms of energy bills lately? Have you seen increases? Yeah. I don't know if anybody else is still on gas, but we're seeing our community members get hit pretty hard. They've actually come down in comparison to where they were at in October and August of this past year. But when we look at the cost and we look at our bill and the charges that are associated, we've got the supply side of things, and then we've got service charges, so transmission and distribution. When we're part of rural electric cooperatives, we can count on our cooperative keeping those rates low as possible, because the funding and the circle, it's a closed loop, right? It's localized. When we are purchasing from investor-owned businesses, they do not necessarily have that same incentive. And that is not a knock to them as a business. It is simply an acknowledgement of the system that we chose, where the goal is to increase revenue generated by the private business. We want to, through this proposal, bring the monthly energy burden for our community members, regardless of whether or not you are a homeowner or a renter, to as close to zero as possible immediately through the creation of this proposal, through placing this project into service. I say as close to zero as possible because that number, that amount that you get on your bill, if our communities only own the supply portion, we'll have to enter into an agreement with our investor-owned utility in order to bring down those transmission and distribution charges, so that service charge on your bill. But what we've explored thus far is that could look like up to an extra $300 a month back in the pockets of our community members, back in the pockets of our families. And we only have to look at the child tax credit that was available for community members throughout lockdown. Folks can remember that, to know what a difference that made for our community members from an economic standpoint. In the community development department, we talk pretty frequently about how we can craft the most beautiful public spaces. We can see tremendous revitalization downtown. But unless our community members have disposable time and disposable income, they won't be able to access those spaces, no matter how beautiful they are. So our goal here is to provide more disposable income for our community members, to help folks get their head above water while decarbonizing. And in addition, providing family sustaining, fulfilling job creation to our region. Because when we talk about a proposal of this size, it's a big fish. It is national news. And when we come to that point, we as a community member, as the developer of this proposal, will get to call the shots about who is hired to conduct the work, about whether or not they pay a prevailing wage, whether or not they meet apprenticeship requirements. We have that control. The ball is in our court, so to speak. It becomes a bit of it's a larger proposal than just one discrete project. We start to ask questions like, well, what happens to the panels when we come to end of life? Could we arrange for a very creative partnership with our SIU, with our Southern Illinois University, to see reclamation of solar panel components? We have R4 advantage here in Southern Illinois. We have access to low carbon transport via rail. We have roads, we have rivers, we have runways. How can we leverage that to attract sustainable business? And if we're offering every business, every industry that comes into our city limits, into our industrial park, the opportunity to purchase affordable, 100% renewable energy, that in and of itself is a hook to say, we want industry who cares enough to be pursuing renewable energy, and we want industry that cares enough to be pursuing family-sustaining job creation. Caring about people. A proposal of this nature, it becomes such a short jump for us to say, okay, we're taking care of our people. We are going to ensure that you are taken care of. It becomes such a short jump to say, well, what does it look like to ensure that every member of our community, every family, has access to a community-supported agriculture share? It opens the door to a multitude of possibilities of saying we are going to foster localized prosperity. Does that answer your question, Councilwoman? Thank you.
The answer to the first question up there, would you like to see continued exploration?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Lauren. Our MC today is Kareem Shariati.
Thank you, Sarah. We have time for one more question.
Shows the solar panels and the, can you go? Oh, you've already shut it down. Okay, well, there's a picture that Lauren presented that shows you what the layout of such a system would look like. And when we had our discussion in study circles and looked at that picture, there was one thing that was very notable and inspirational to us in looking at that picture. And that was that it had a lake. It had a water supply. And just to show you what we are capable, our city owns that water. That's not true of other places. This is a huge resource, but it also gives us the story that we are capable of great projects. And Gail Clam better than anybody can tell that story. But we've done these kinds of things before. It's paid off. It will pay off again. Thank you.
That water is now a critical element in the possibility of this from the next I'd just like to give make a few thank yous. The League of Women Voters presented us with provided us with the timekeepers today, and they're right here in front on the front row there. The ladies of the League of Women Voters, and a special thank you to the director and staff of the Carbondale Library. They provided us with the venue and the tech support. And believe me, we could not have done it without Jennifer. And so thank you so much, Jennifer. And so I kind of like, how do I end this? And I usually like to go with the Carol Burnett thing. But the last, I'm so glad we had this time together. Yeah. And so, but the last meeting that we had with Sarah, Jennifer, and I here at the library, Jennifer's son was sick, and she said he was in a hammock under her desk. And today is the 2nd of February, and February is traditionally known as Black History Month. And I'm sure you guys are familiar, have heard at least heard about Harriet Tubman. And so how they would have coded languages and whatnot. So Jennifer, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Thank you for coming.